let's get cracking with it. And I suppose the premise behind all of this is I spend so much time, as you do, I know, but we spend so much time inside recruitment companies every day, right? Different organizations, different recruitment businesses. And the classic old school days when you used to wander around a sales floor in a recruitment business and it was noisy. There were people who were banging their phones, everyone was on their feet, headsets on, yet some people had their hands taped to the telephone, and it was all about sell, sell, sell. That seems to have changed a lot, right? So let's be realistic about it in the sense that there's a lot of people now who tend to either favor or certainly spend more time online, maybe too much time online, sending emails and in-mails, especially spending a hell of a lot of time on social media. I'm not necessarily here to say it's what's right or what's wrong. I do have an opinion about it, and we can talk about that as we go. But the reality is, if we are spending a lot more time on social media, you've got to get a bloody return on investment from it. Otherwise, it's a complete distraction. And I know for me, I know, and you know how much of a butterfly type person I am, sort of stuff. It's easy to get distracted with stuff, especially when people are doing social media on their phone, because they've also got their Instagram open and their Facebook open and everything else. So there's one side of the conversation for me is, if we're going to spend time on social media, we think it's important to build a personal brand as part of the sales process, then we've got to have a plan and a strategy to do it properly, and you've got to get a bloody good return on investment from it. Number one, I think that's important. The second piece to me is around the importance of actually what's coming out of social media, because we had this conversation fairly recently on some of the chats around the AI Mastery Challenge and the AI stuff that we're doing at TRN. And the more people are using AI, the more people are distrusting what they see on social media. So there's a bit of a reality check now that actually, if we're just using AI to create social media content and we're blurting stuff out everyone else's, people don't really believe it anymore, and people are naturally just switching off. And then you add in the third factor when you've got these crazy LinkedIn algorithms, as an example, who are now showing people posts that were 3 weeks old, 5 weeks old, of an event that happened 3 days ago. It's the algorithms are messing everything up a little bit as well. So I just think it's a mess. I really believe it's a bit of a mess. And people are wasting too much time on social media, not getting good enough return on investment. So I want to do something about it. We are working with some really cool members around their social media strategy at the moment, personal branding strategy. That's not just the leaders, but it's also the recruiters as well. Obviously, they're a big part of this, and the marketeers. And the reason why I suppose we wanted to launch Social Scaling, which is this program I've been piloting with a few members, we've got some great results off the back of it, which have been brilliant. Like, people are actually picking up retained jobs and new business off the back of the social media strategy that we've implemented with them. So I thought this was a good time to maybe talk a little bit about what I'm seeing and what's going on in the market. And if anyone on the call or anyone listening in today wants to get involved in the Social Scaling program, we'd love to welcome you on the next cohort, which is coming up in September. So that's my sort of play. But as I said at the beginning, you're not really a social media sort of guy, if there is such a thing. I'm going to ask you a question just to kick things off. Is why is it that you don't spend much time on building a personal brand on social and stuff?
Part of it is because I work alongside you and I've done for 20 years, and you do a lot of it and are very good at it. So I kind of feel the brand and the voice piece is kind of covered. But I was thinking about today, I've got about 6,000 connections on LinkedIn, and I'm just kind of thinking it's a little bit wasted opportunity to share some of the things I'm seeing, because even though I don't particularly, it's not my personality to put myself out there. But I know I've got a voice, and I know every day I'm speaking to recruitment business leaders, and I'm hearing challenges, shared challenges. I'm hearing about great successes. So I've got a lot of things to say, but part of it is it's not my job. I have a sort of management operational role within TRN, so I spend a lot of my time doing stuff, managing stuff, and I don't necessarily think this is my job to put myself out there. Especially, we've got a marketing team, we've got yourself doing what you do, and then there is the time issue. And I know you're busy, I'm busy, but finding and carving out time on a daily basis, and I know that's true of our members, whether billing managers, people running recruitment businesses. How do you find the time? I've never asked you this question. How do you do it? How do you find the time to consistently put a message out there and post out there?
Well, I just don't do anything else. That's it. That's all I do all day long. I sit on social media. No, and it's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you go back we've gone through a transitional point. You start off, go back 3 or 4 years ago, where the reality is everyone was trying to figure out social media properly, from a sales point of view. And then the last few years, we've sort of been getting traction, but it's been very mandronic. So lots of time, effort, and spent. Now we're in a completely different world, and the world of AI and how AI impacts social media is brilliant. But I think 99.9% of the industry are getting it completely wrong. So where people are getting it wrong is they're using AI, they're building AI, well, they're not even building AI agents, but they're using AI to do a lot of the outbound stuff of the social media piece. It's the opposite of what you should be doing. The outbound bit is the personal bit, is you, it's the human, it's the real person. All the heavy lifting that you have to do in building social media posts, strategies, outreach campaigns, etc. All that heavy lifting can be done through AI. And this is the really cool thing about it. So I think for me, it's easier now than ever been before to find time to do a social media campaign, a proper personal branding campaign. And I think you can spend no more than 15 minutes a day doing so. I really, really believe that. 15 to 20 minutes a day. If you've got the AI agents built doing all the heavy lifting, and we've got some really cool collection of AI agents now that we've built. I was actually with one of the members in Australia first thing this morning. I was walking through this AI agent we built for them, and it's absolutely bloody brilliant. It does all the work for them, which means he hasn't got to think at all. All he has to do is take it and then put his personality to it. So that's really important. So you build the AI agents, you roll out the agents, and I'm going to show you some really cool examples of that. But then you stop when it comes to the outbound piece. And then what I tend to do is I try and sort of schedule content. I do all my content at a particular time, and I schedule it, and I do it in blocks. So I have a couple of 5-minute blocks throughout the course of a day, where I do creation stuff. So that's when I write stuff, post stuff, etc., based on the stuff that's come from the AI agents. And then I have a couple of blocks, which is my interaction blocks, which is where I'm interacting with people's posts. So I've got a list of people that I'm targeting, want to do business with. I make sure I'm commenting on the post, interacting with them, etc. So I reckon with AI agents and with some cleverly mapped out and some discipline behind that around those blocks, content and interaction blocks, I think actually you can spend no more than, let's say, half an hour a day on your social media and your personal branding, which is still quite a lot of time. Don't get me wrong, half an hour a day is not something you just want to give away.
Yeah.
But if it's clearly directly impacted and linked inside your sales strategy, so it's not a separate thing, it's part of the sales strategy, then you can see a return on investment. And I think half an hour to warm up customers, to get people engaged, to improve conversion ratios is definitely half an hour well spent, without doubt.
And are you, when you're helping members get on top of this, are you seeing the challenge been around the discipline or the understanding of how to use AI to get the efficiency when you're posting?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's definitely discipline, first of all, because you know what it's like. We doom scroll. People get distracted when they're on social media, etc. I use a tool called Opal, and Opal throughout the course of the day allows me to do social media at certain times of the day on certain platforms, and then it blocks everything else, so I can't do anything else.
Okay.
So that's forced me to have a bit of discipline, because you know how badly disciplined I am about things. And it stops me getting distracted and going off on Instagram and other places. And the next thing you know, you're on Strava, and then you're here, and then you're there. And then the other piece, and actually Thomas Thomas has mentioned this in the chat. Clearly, he's a massive fan of AI. LinkedIn is full of self-congratulatory and AI-generated slop. Oh, I love that. It doesn't help us stand out. And he's absolutely spot on. And this is because we're not using it properly. The reality is we're using AI to create content that we then post out, which then creates stuff everyone else is posting. It's the same sort of rubbish. It's the same sort of, as he put it, AI-generated slop. I love that as an expression. For me, the AI bit is about building the concepts and helping you bring in content to then you create it in your way. So I don't think people know how to use it properly, and I think we're using it in the completely wrong way. And I think that's having a massively, to Thomas's point, a massively detrimental impact on our industry, on our brands, on our personal brands, and everything else that goes with that.
Well, okay, let's go on to the slop piece, because clearly what you don't want to put out is bland slop. You want to put out something that's opinion, of interest, of value.
Yeah.
How do you get that right? Because I guess you and me, with our relationship with TRN and the community, we see lots of interesting insights all the time. So in some ways, I think, well, I'm hearing interesting conversations and debates and innovations happening every single day. So it's easier for me to put something out if I was a bit found the time to do it. and organize myself. But in the busy world of recruitment, where it's busy as hell, LinkedIn, how do you stand out? How do you say the right thing, or what is the right thing?
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about actually the difference between standing out and getting conversions, because this is where fundamentally it goes wrong. So LinkedIn is a vanity play for most people. Okay. So someone spends 2 or 3 hours in absolute paralysis sitting in front of a computer trying to come up with the next really cool post that's going to go viral overnight or viral in the next 2 or 3 hours. That's the sort of that's what everyone does, which is the completely wrong thinking. They then post it, and then for the next 20 minutes, every 10 seconds, they're going back onto LinkedIn just to check how many likes it got, and then 10 seconds, oh, how many likes did it get, and that sort of stuff. And we live in this really weird world where we need that self-gratification, I suppose, that's coming from it. So for me, that's where it's all wrong. That's all the vanity stuff that we sort of talk about. I honestly, you talked about the fact you've got 6,000, 9,000 connections or whatever it is. I don't really care how many connections you've got. I don't really care how many likes you get on a post. That's all vanity stuff. It makes you feel goosey and good. And it's the stuff that a lot of the social media or so-called social media gurus like to talk about and profess about because it makes them look as if they're doing really, really well. The reality is it's all about how do you get people to convert? How do you get the right people to convert? So if you've got connections of 6,000 people and they're all targeted decision makers and exactly in your target market, and you're converting at a really high rate, those 6,000 people, that is a million times better than being connected to just about everybody and anybody with a bunch of people who like and follow you, who've got nothing else to do all day apart from like and follow people on social media. So we've got to get over this piece from vanity to sanity. We've got to focus on conversion ratios. It's far more important. So how do you do that? The starting point for me is always building out your ICP. We've talked about this for years and years and years, your ideal customer profile. And you do this in AI. So for now, you go into your AI, you build an AI agent or agents, and you pump in there and you create your ideal customer profiles based on your typical, and you have agents for them. So then whenever I'm trying to create some outreach content or some thought starter ideas or whatever it might be, it's going to start back in with who am I trying to target in the first place. And the AI agent thinks and behaves in that way for me. So if I'm doing a candidate campaign, I will go to my AI agent, which is a candidate agent. If it's a client campaign, I'll go to that specific client ICP, etc. And I'll be interested actually, just anyone on this who's live on this chat today, just give me a thumbs up if you currently do that at the moment. Do you have AI agents built for your ideal customers? So then you run your content plans through those ideal customer agents first before you actually create them? Or honestly, do we just like randomly create stuff? And I've got a feeling we ain't going to get many thumbs up on that particular question because that's the reality. That's what we tend to do. So if you want to get content that's going to stand out, you've got to identify content that people are actually interested in the first place and I really want to listen to. And that's prevalent right here, right now. Today we talk about pain points and all that sort of stuff. So then you have to go back into it. If we don't understand that in the first place, you ain't ever going to be able to make it land. So we've got to get to that starting point first. You build out the ICP agents first. And again, on the social scaling program we're launching in a few weeks, we're going to be building AI agents for your ICPs. I've got some really cool tools around that. So then the starting point is, before we start creating content, let's actually identify what do people want to know about, what do they want to talk about, what will make them stop in their tracks, when are they going onto social media, at what time, what channels are they using. We understand all that, then our content plan is a hell of a lot easier because it sits right on top of that, as opposed to I've created a lot of content or hope it lands, let's check every 10 seconds and see if we get any likes.
And just to be clear, so when you're posting out there, is it to multiple audiences, or is each message targeted either at recruitment business leaders or the industry or suppliers?
You're limited to what you can do, right? So obviously
Yeah.
you can't target 25 different ICPs, so you've got no chance to do it.
Yeah.
But what you can do is run campaigns. So I tend to run sort of themed campaigns. I interject it, and people know me on social media. I interject it with some personal stuff, but I'm very, very careful about how personal I get on LinkedIn because there is definitely a fine line with it. If you see people posting pictures every single day of them with their babies and their children, it generally means they're desperate for likes and followers as opposed to because they're creating meaningful converting content. But every now and then having some personal stuff in there just makes you human, which again, going back into the world we live in at the moment, is actually really, really important part of the social media process, is demonstrating you are a real human being with feelings and everything else to a point. Don't go too far with it. But yeah, to me, I have themed campaigns. So in a particular month, I'll be picking one or two ICPs. There'll be a
Yeah.
campaign specifically to them. Most recruiters tend to have a half a dozen or two or three ICPs. That's it. They don't have multiples anyway. So
Do you, I like writing actually, and my last post, which was about 2.5 years ago, was all about comparing Jurgen's Klopp leadership style and what was recruitment business leadership learned from that. It went down pretty well. I took quite a long time doing it, and I played with it for way too long. On the writing side of things, though, you see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, for example, is just not that well written. So,
Mhm.
how do people who don't necessarily have the confidence about writing
Yep.
get it right without bringing in copywriters and
Yep.
skills? Is that AI?
Yeah, well, there's always AI now. So every question you're going to ask, there's probably an AI answer to every question. But
Mm.
you can definitely build an AI copywriter agent or an AI story writer agent on ChatGPT in seconds, and it will do a 20 times better job than you'll ever do. So you train and teach it to think and talk and create content and write in the way that you want it to write. Again, I would never just copy that and stick it on social media. But if it does a big chunk of my heavy lifting and it's doing the thinking for me quicker, basically what AI is not doing is doing the thinking for me. It's
Mm.
just doing it a hell of a lot quicker than I've got time to be able to do. So that's why you have to clone your agents. That's why you have to build the agent so it thinks and behaves like you. Otherwise, what it comes out with is a load of rubbish and a load of poor stuff. So AI would definitely help. So build an AI copywriter agent or build a storytelling. I like the storytelling ones. They're really cool. So you can build a really cool storytelling one. And again, in the social scaling program, we'll be showing some of the prompts that you could use to do that, which is quite fun. But the other way to do it, and I think this is where I personally have an issue with some of the content I see, it's very well crafted content. And I think very well crafted content is so obviously now fake, or it's been obviously, I don't believe it anywhere near as much as ever before. So a really cool way to get away from the really well crafted content and instead create really good content that feels a bit more human and a bit more real is to do voice to text. So as an example, we did this with an exercise with one of the members fairly recently, where we sat down with them for about 30 minutes and we just talked to them about their week. And I asked them a bunch of questions. Just ran it. We just had, like we're having a chat now. We talked about how's your week gone. Who have you spoken to? What's it like on the marketplace? What are people saying? What are the candidates looking for at the moment? And they just chatted like they would normally chat. That audio, we then transcribed the audio, and that became the content because actually that chatty conversational style, really real, really interesting data, lots of stories, lots of examples and stuff, was the perfect content to go out on social
Mm.
media that represented their style. Now, what they would have done, they would have sat down and said, right, I'm going to try and come up with some themes for this week and write it all out. And then they craft it and they work it all out in the formatting. And it just becomes ugly. It becomes almost too polished to make it
Mm.
realistic. So I love that as a concept. The voice to texting. Just get Claude or get your phone out, record it, get it transcribed, and then from there you can create so many different posts that come off the back of that. That's really really human, which I think is great. So
And we are all having enough conversations every single day, whether it's with candidates or clients or colleagues or whatever, to generate actually significant amounts of angles and content.
well, this is why I use Claude, right? So
Mm.
I've got that tool, Claude, my little thing I like to walk around with. That records basically all the conversations I'm having. It's absolutely genius.
Mm.
And the really cool thing about it is I can have a whole day of just, and no, same with like with Teams calls or Zoom calls. I'm using Fathom, etc., or whatever. But I can have a whole day, every single word, conversation, and whatever, has been recorded. Now, I'm
Mm.
not going to just go and post that on social media because some of that's private content, etc., etc. But what I can do, I can then take all that transcript, the day's worth of transcript, pump it into an AI agent, my storytelling agent, and ask it to basically recreate that into 10 blog posts summarizing some of the key themes. I
Yeah.
then take those blog posts, and all I've got to do now is rewrite it in my way or adapt it to my way so I'm comfortable to post it on social media. So that heavy lifting, 98% of content creation is done for me using a process similar to that. All I'm doing is the 2% piece. And
Yeah.
that's where my 5 minutes comes in on social media.
Yeah. They love it. We did a big benchmarking exercise recently around members and their marketing. 9% of TRN members are getting a clear and tangible ROI from their marketing. One of the things when we looked at the 9% was that they all kind of go for the long play. They recognize everything's about the long play.
Mhm.
A lot of people I've spoken to have given it a go in terms of trying to build their personal brand. and maybe not seen the results they've been looking for. What's your experience of what we need to do if we've been there, tried it, not got the results we need, to go again?
Well, I mean, if you're not getting the results you need, something's obviously not working. That's a fairly obvious thing to say, I suppose. The where people I think get this slightly wrong is that we focus on social media as a thing. So I'm going to wake up today, I'm going to do my social media, I'm going to do my personal branding stuff. Right, done that. Now I'm going to go back to my day job, sort of thing. What we've got to realize is that your personal branding, if you've done it properly, is part of the sales process. It's part of the
Yeah.
sales funnel. So everything is interlinked together. Your conversion ratios at the bottom of the sales funnel will have it be impacted by what you're doing at the top of funnel with your personal branding as well. So don't look at social media as a process. Look at social media as part of the sales process. So we look at workflows as opposed to just generic posts and all that type of stuff. So then for me, if you're building out a sales workflow, which starts with personal brand, building content, getting engagement, conversions into a call to action, let's say the call to action is a meeting with the customer. Then from there, you then got your meetings, and then from there it goes into your meetings, to your jobs on, to your deals, etc., etc. The entire workflow can be measured out top to bottom.
Mm.
If you are doing your personal branding thing right, you should be able to say, for every post I post up here, or every 10 minutes I spend up here on my personal branding, it should create X down here at the bottom. If you can't see that, and that's never accurate, right? But if you can't see that journey mapped out and play with it, then what you're doing at the top either isn't working, or you shouldn't be doing it at all, because you're just second guessing if it's having an impact or not. So for me, you build out the sales workflow, you incorporate personal branding as part of that workflow. And bear in mind, when we talk about RevOps and some of the RevOps stuff that we've done at TRN, the sales process doesn't stop when someone closes a deal. The sales
Mm.
process is you carry on selling and engaging and marketing to your existing customers. So the whole personal branding thing carries on after the closing of the deal. So it's a circular process. If you can measure every stage of that circular process, and I've got a really cool dashboard I'm going to share with people at the social scaling stuff, where you can actually see that. So if I tweak that there by 1%, that comes out of that other end down there. So therefore, if I do lots more of that, I'm going to get lots more of that down the other bottom. Or even better, how do I improve my conversions at each of these different stages? And when we start thinking and talking like that, personal branding becomes an intrinsic part of the sales process rather than just a thing I did this morning, now I go back to my day job type of stuff. And that's where I think sometimes this is where it goes wrong, and probably why people are getting it slightly wrong. So
Yeah, and actually, as you're talking, the second of the 8 traits that our most successful members, when it comes to marketing, do religiously and relentlessly is the tracking and measurement. Which, again, when I speak to other people and saying, how's the marketing going, what's happening, there's an absence of numbers to either convince us to do more of it or to tell us to do something different.
yeah, I mean, and to Kamar's point, I think he's asked the question on the chat here, which is absolutely spot on. Talk about social scaling timeframes. So if I post something, it takes 6 to 8 weeks before I get any impact. So again, a big, really smart recruiters in today's age, when we're looking at the science behind the sales process, is how do we shorten the sales time? Yeah, because as we know, time kills deals, all that sort of good stuff. But the shorter the sales time, the more chance we've got to convert. So the question to Kamar's point is, what is a good time frame? 6 to 8 weeks is probably about realistic, I suppose, if you've got cold customers coming through. But I know people who basically created a 30-day campaign, a 30-day sprint campaign. There's one example, one of the members did this. They did a one campaign. It created 127 group meetings. So that's what I refer to as, in the sales funnel, an opportunity for 127 people to come together. So that all came from the personal branding exercise. And on the back of that, that converted into over 30 one-to-one meetings. Some of you who've been on my sales training would have heard me talk about that whole journey in that case study before. And it's really, really effective. That came from one post on social media. One post, 127 group meetings, 30 one-to-one meetings. Let's imagine they close, I don't know, a tenth of those, or 25% of those into business at an average deal size of 10K. Suddenly you're talking about, there's £80,000 of fees that have come from one social media post, but on a workflow in a process. And that process, to Kamar's point, in this case, took 30 days. So it doesn't have to be 6 to 8 weeks. It's whatever we decide based on our workflows. And that's why we've got to build those flows out.
How if I'm running a recruitment business with 10 people, I've got a couple of team leaders. To what extent should I be coordinating my approach as a business leader. Let's say I'm a business leader, I haven't done too much of this, got 1,000 connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the team leader, should this be aligned, coordinated, or do we all just follow the principles and go for it?
No, so you build the framework, you build the principles, you show the journey of how to do it, you build the agents for your team,
Yeah.
and then the personality of the individuals is the bit that comes out. So that's where it feels
Mm.
individualistic and different from everybody else.
Yeah.
But you, as a company, you have one process. In the same way you have one RevOps process, you have one sales process or marketing outreach process. This is how we do it around here. So if you want to create content, it's 30 minutes a day maximum, but you follow the process. You pump your ICPs, you create the agents then produce the outputs. You take the outputs, you do this. This is the schedule for when you post. These are your golden hours, so make sure you're posting at your golden hours, because we haven't talked about that, but the golden hours are the times on social media based on the algorithms and based on your ICPs when you'll get the highest levels of conversions. So
Yeah.
I know for me, when I post, I always post at least one post a day in a golden hour, because I know I will get a viral return on investment from that. If I take exactly the same post and did it at a different time of the day, I will probably lose any form of traction off the back of it. So you've got to get that piece absolutely right.
Yeah. Donna Newton, missing the days where you just picked up the phone and spoke to a person that I need.
Yeah, but Donna, and Donna's right. So do I. Right, I really miss it. I complain all the time about people, even within our team, who sort of would rather send someone an email or an email than just pick up the phone to them and just ask them the question. But the reality is, people just don't pick up the phones anywhere near as much anymore. So our
Mm.
customers, our candidates, they don't do so. You start adding in all the stuff that's happening, like with the new iPhone upgrade now, where if you do a cold call, you've actually got to write into it first what the cold call is about, so the person can decide whether they want to read it or not. That's going to significantly change our ability to cold call. I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to improve cold calling, absolutely. But again, if I've already warmed up the customer through my personal branding campaigns that I've done, when I make that call, it's not a cold call anymore. So to Donna's point, yeah, Donna, let's pick up the phone again a hell of a lot more than we've ever done before, because now's the time to be doing so. But only do it to those people that have gone through the warm-up process in your personal branding campaigns, because then your conversions will be high. You won't have people who are cold call reluctant in our businesses because they don't like the fact that everyone keeps telling them to bugger off. And we'll be able to circumnavigate and get around these new iPhone upgrades, where we've got to explain why we're calling.
Yeah. Can I touch on the confidence thing? As you know, I'm not a recruiter, never have been. But that doesn't stop me posting. That's not the reason I don't post, because actually I have so many conversations with people that gives me insights and opinion, and I work with that many recruitment businesses. That doesn't bother me at all. But there will be people out there, whether they're the next generation moving into the professional space, who maybe don't have the confidence about posting, or maybe don't feel that their voice is one that has credibility, or their voice is going to influence the way it should do.
Yeah.
What's you've never had that challenge. Were what's your advice to people who, I mean, do they do it through the company account, for example? Is that a way that you'd as opposed to through their own personal LinkedIn account?
Yeah, well, let's just touch on one thing very quickly. If what we were saying, if we're not confident what we're saying is worth listening to, and that's holding us back, you need to really think about what you're posting in the first place. Because someone always says to me, "How often should I post on social media?" And my comment is really simple, and it will always be the same: post as often as you like, as long as it's really bloody good. If you're posting lots and lots of rubbish stuff, I suggest you want to trim that right down. Basically, that's
Yeah.
the reality. So if you're not confident in what you're posting, make sure you get confident in what you're posting. Um, there's always a big debate around using company brands to do all this, etc. The reality is, people buy from people. That never changes, and more so now than ever before. People need to fall in love with you. They need to trust you. They need to like you and that type of stuff. So that's why whenever you do a post in your personal on social media, if you did the same post on your company brand and it came out from a personal brand, the personal brand will always get significantly higher conversions and traction on it, simply because people are more engaged with personal humans and individuals than they are with companies and logos and that type of stuff. So for me, yes, absolutely. You should have it obviously a company branding process, but definitely individuals need to be doing this. It's part of the sales process today. If you think about how do people buy today, you don't just make a buying decision by going, oh, I got a really nice cold call from a guy called Gordon. He's like a good bloke. I'm going to go and buy from him today. You don't do that. You go and do your research. You speak to your peers. You search on social media to get some ideas. That's just the process we go through. So unless we're in the game, we're not going to allow people to be able to buy from us. So you have to do this. It's quite simple. Again, we'll touch on this in social scaling, but one of the things that we're doing a lot of is creating almost, how can I try camera shy pathways for content creation, I suppose, in other ways. So I don't mind seeing my face on video, and I think you should as well, mate. You've got a very good looking. But actually, the reality is there are some people who are naturally just camera shy, and I totally understand that and totally get that. So we've created different content tools and processes to do that. So how do you build new levels of carousels, for example, that don't require your face? We've even got some really cool AI agents. Again, I hate to use that, but against they're actually creating avatar versions of you that actually really do look like you, not to the point where it's like I'm saying it's me, but you're having fun with it, etc. So there's ways of doing this without having to have your physical face on thing, and we'll talk about some of those pathways at social scaling. But that's the principle, that you don't have to have your face everywhere. It helps if you can, if you've got the confidence to be able to do it. And the reality is most people actually aren't camera shy because we're very comfortable to do it on Instagram. We're very comfortable to do it on Facebook with our mates and all that type of stuff. It's just we have this screw that starts turning in our head when we start thinking about selling to customers, because we put them on a pedestal and that type of stuff, and it's all very serious all of a sudden. That's not what social media is about. It doesn't have to be serious. It just has to be human and personalized. So I would look at LinkedIn as it's the same as Facebook, the same as Instagram, but it has barriers and has guides. So I don't post pictures of my babies up there type of thing every day. But I try and keep my personality in there if I can, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The ultimate goal is a business where the business leaders creating influence, adding value, creating engagement, building managers if we've got them, consultants. How do you create the machine? Because a lot of, you touched on it, a lot of experienced billing managers, some of them are very effective. I ran a big biller workshop a couple of months ago, and big billers who don't necessarily do much of this stuff because they're so damn good in terms of the relationship building, the connections and the credibility they've built. So you got those people who might not want to get into this space, and then you've got the less experienced people who, as we've touched on already, might not want to go big in terms of the professional arena of LinkedIn, for example. But ultimately, if we can build the machine where we're all doing it, we're all building brand, we're creating engagement, that's contributing to the opportunities dropping down the funnel and conversations. What are the best examples you've seen of people who've sort of really built that machine across the team?
Yeah, so sales is about, again, this is where a lot of people are not, I think lazy is the wrong word, but we try and go to the quickest route to a deal. Which is why we end up picking up little piecemeal bits of business here and there if we're lucky type stuff, and it's not really proper opportunities. It's a long game strategy to do this properly. If you go back to the old school ways of selling and the old principles behind sales, if I'm going to target a particular customer, I need to target everybody involved in the decision-making process. So I'm not just going to target the decision makers. I'm going to be targeting and engaging with the decision influencers, the blockers, etc. I need to get everybody on board. So when they all sit down internally as a company and go, who should we use for our recruitment tomorrow? They're all going to say at the same time, we should use these guys. They're brilliant. In fact, we should do a retained partnership with them, is the sort of golden holy grail to get to. So in that principle, everybody in a recruitment company should be selling to all the decision makers and influencers within a customer. So if you're building a proper social media strategy, you've got 3 or 4 people within your business, maybe the manager, maybe the MD, maybe the team leader, maybe the consultants, who are all targeting different people within what we refer to as the client map. So you build the client maps. We've got some great tools on TRN World about that, and we'll showcase some of those on social scaling actually. But you build out the client map. Here are 10 customers I'm going after. These are the client maps. So these are all decision makers and influencers that we need to be across to be on top of. We're now going to build campaigns for those 4 people, let's say. And John, you're going to pick that campaign and you're going to target him. And Gordon, you're going to pick that one. And we're going to, like an arrowhead, we're going to come in and do a proper effort on it. That's how sales always used to be. That's called strategic selling. We now do, well, I don't know what the word is, basically lazy selling, let's call it, where we just go, oh, there's a hit, let's try and get it. Oh, no, didn't get it. Move on to the next one. It's very like this sort of stuff. There's no strategy behind it. Now, that may work in a boom market, but in a tougher market, that's really, really hard to get traction. And to me, if you go back to the sales funnel is always about a wide top at the funnel to ensure you've got enough momentum, enough stuff happening. So if things go a bit quiet, you've got other stuff to track into. And that process to me is part of that. And you touched on a really interesting point, because if you look at our industry, there's a lot of really good senior recruiters who are 300-400K billers who for the last 12 to 18 months have been really underperforming. And one of the main reasons for that is their network that they've always traded on, their customer base that they've built up over the last 25 years, because they're as old as I am, it started to dry up a little bit. And they haven't been particularly great at generating new opportunities to come into the top of the sales hopper. This personal branding piece is about that. It's about how do we get people who have got networks that are drying up to increase more or generate more top of the funnel opportunities. And how do we bring newer recruiters coming into the industry or early stage recruiters? How do we get them to build quick momentum so they're engaging with multiple people all at the same time? Now, I love that concept when people say to you as a recruiter, everywhere I go, I see your face, you're everywhere. That's when you know you're getting this piece right. And providing they like your face and what you're saying when they see you is what they want to hear, then you're killing it, and you will pick up business all over the place. And we're seeing it all the time at the moment. We've got people who have gone through the social scaling pilot who are winning business in exactly the same market as other recruitment businesses who are failing miserably and saying the market's dead. And they go, well, it's not dead because they're just winning business off the back of it. So we know that's not true. It can't be the market. The market's tighter, but it's definitely not a tight market. There's plenty of business out there. It's how our strategy that we're approaching. And unless we're fixing this and getting this right, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we spend every day with our members talking about future fitness, and we're seeing actually so many of our members having a really good year because they've embraced the different aspects of future fitness, part of which is building brand. But this is no longer a nice to do. This is a core component of you standing out and adding value in the marketplace today.
Yeah, it's the top of the sales funnel. It's as simple as that. It's that the top of the sales funnel is not the same as the top of the sales funnel was 10 years ago. When I started out in recruitment, we didn't have social media. We had to wind up our computers in the morning, that type of stuff. But we literally had a list of names and a telephone, and that's what you did. And it was like break down the door, and all about, can you get one call to action? Can you get a meeting? That principle has not gone away. What has changed is the way people buy. And people do not buy in the same way as they did 20 years ago. That is a reality. So we can't just keep banging the phones and cold calling and hoping we're going to get the same result we got 20 years ago. It doesn't mean cold calling doesn't work. It doesn't mean picking up the phone is not the right thing to do. In fact, quite the opposite. But we've got to do the warming up process first. We've got to get people engaged. We've got to help them make half the buying decision before we've even spoken to them. And half that buying decision comes into, do they like us? Do they trust us? Do they get what we're doing? And so on and so forth. And to Donna's point, and he asked about how do you sell this long game internally, it all comes down to measuring conversions through the process. It's simple as that. If I can demonstrate tomorrow that in the next 30 days, because I'm doing social scaling and going on this process or whatever it might be, and in 30 days, I brought in an extra 1,500 prospect customers into the top of the hopper in some format, and I've managed to convert 2% of those into some level of engagement, which means it's getting me one step closer to having a meeting with them. Trust me, you'll get buy-in from everyone within your business pretty damn quick, because we know once we get the meetings in sales is the holy grail. If I can get in front of customers, I can have proper conversations with them. I can talk to them about workforce planning. I can win big business, proper business, all that sort of good stuff. So I've got to get in front of customers. Your whole personal branding strategy is creating a call to action to get you in front of customers. That's it. So if you want to sell this internally, just demonstrate how many meetings that you're converting off the back of your personal branding strategy. We know that will convert into business, good business.
The other thing I see, Donna, is every time I sit in front of a business and say, well, what are you trying to build here? What does it look like? Everybody will say we want to be perceived in our space as experts, specialists, etc. And then if you start mapping out the touch points and how you can make that happen, inevitably this is absolutely front and center of what you do. So it's part of where it's all going.
Yeah,
Which is
and that's one of that's one of the things we talk about in the social scaling program. Actually, is actually, do people want to be seen as be experts in their marketplace? I'm not necessarily convinced that's right for everybody, and in some cases, people need to be seen as aggregators rather than creators. So we try and come creators, right? Look at me, I've created a cool new post, I've got this new thing, and blah blah blah.
yeah,
Everybody, oh, great.
yeah,
But actually, in recruitment, what am I looking for? I'm looking for an aggregator, somebody who's well networked, who can move things around, who knows everyone and moves things around. So sometimes there's a whole content strategy which is just about aggregation. It's just about resharing and repurposing existing content.
yeah,
If you think about that properly as part of your strategy, that becomes a really interesting strategy that does work really well as well. Doesn't matter, you don't have to create all the time. I think sometimes we try and be the creators. You don't need to do it.
yeah. We've seen so many of our, you're absolutely right. We've seen so many of our members become facilitators of communities
Yeah.
and bring people together. It's really
Yeah, and that's a big extension. I mean, off the back of social scaling, we're going to see a lot of communities built off the back of that, because that is definitely one thing. If you're getting your personal branding strategy right, you naturally create a community whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
You can then go and monetize and build that community out. That becomes really quite interesting.
yeah. I'm conscious of time. If there'll be people on here that do this really well and just come along to pick up some extra tips, but if somebody's sort of thinking, right, I've really not got the hang of this, how do you kick it off?
You see the social scaling program. There you go. Yeah. No, but you've got to have a plan. Okay. We At the end of the day, we all wake up every day, and the first thing you do when you're half asleep in the shower, you get your phone out and we start looking at social media. And because I actually went to go and look at Facebook. That's the first thing I did this morning. But because I'm on Facebook now and LinkedIn app is next to my Facebook thing, I just quickly flicked onto LinkedIn, and I've just literally scrolled through LinkedIn now. So bear in mind, I'm half asleep, half in the shower, in bed still, not really thinking, and I've now just gone past your post. So that's it, job done. Your post is now finished in my world, sort of stuff. So we've got to build a strategy to make sure that when I see your post, I stop in my tracks and I do something about it. Otherwise, it all comes down to how cool do my posts look? How pretty are they? What do the images look like? And am I getting likes on them? If you're half asleep in bed and you're just lying in bed liking my post with all the other 1,000 likes that you did in that 5 minutes over your cup of tea, that is not social media personal branding strategy. That's not conversion. That is people just basically doing the nice thing and like, whatever. By the way, I'm off now. Well, I'm going to have my shower. So we've got to build the plan to stop people in their tracks, and you've got to stop people doom scrolling past your content. You've got to stop the algorithms messing up your content. So people are only seeing stuff that's 3 weeks old and that sort of thing, which is just killing a lot of people at the moment, especially when you're running events. I've got an event on next Thursday, but no one sees your post for 3 weeks. That's a bit pointless. So you've got to build a strategy around that, which is important. It's a process. And then the really cool thing, because of AI, we can then interject AI and tech and automations to do all the heavy lifting. So I can do that really well thought out, planned process at scale. And it doesn't take me a lot of time. So then I actually, do you know what? 95% of my day is doing what I should be doing. To everyone else's point on this chat, being on the phones, being in front of customers, and being a bloody good recruiter, not trying to become a social media expert. You don't need to do that.
Damn it, you've removed all my excuses.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna be my first. In fact, you should be on the social scaling program. That's what we're gonna do. You're gonna be on the social scaling program with me, and we're gonna make it happen.
I'm there.
And by the way, if you bring all your team as well, they get a discount. How about that? So that's really cool. So there you go.
Brilliant.
Very good. All right, guys. Listen, G, great to catch up. I know we do laugh about this, and I know I'm quite confident on social media. I suppose that's the world I've been brought up in, sort of stuff, and other people aren't. I don't think we need to overthink this. I just think we need to have a proper strategy that we follow. It's as simple as that. If people listening into this conversation today want to be part of the social scaling program, come and find out a little more about it. We'll walk you through. It's a 90-day sprint program. It's brilliant. I'm going to run it personally. I'm quite passionate about this. I've got a lot of really cool ideas that we can show you. So feel free to reach out to us and get involved with that. And we'd love to see you on that. The next cohort starts in September. And we're going to really ramp things up to make sure that we finish the year on a real high, because I really don't want to get to that December lull and then people go, oh, it's December now, it's going to fizzle out, wait till January. I want people to have their best month ever leading up into December, and I think we can do that with the social media and the social scaling program. So very good. G, as always, I will see you on LinkedIn.
See you there.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys. Good to see you, G.